Hi guys, so the moment's finally here. We got some news today in regards to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I normally don't do videos like this, but obviously because I do a lot of X-Plane videos, I thought it was only appropriate to let you guys know what will be happening with flight simulation moving forwards. Microsoft has finally announced its release date, which is August the 18th for the release of the game. I've got some footage of it playing in the background so you can see just how amazing it looks in comparison to any flight sims we have at the moment. It's featuring fully volumetric clouds, which is something we haven't seen in any flight sims before. As you've probably noticed and I have mentioned before, you normally get the rotating clouds as opposed to ones you fly through. All of the scenery is done in collaboration between Microsoft and Asobo using Bing maps, so they can replicate the full world to its entirety with satellite imagery to make it look at its full best. It's using auto-generated algorithms for placement of all the trees, buildings, roads and everything like that. So they're essentially making it so that all of the roads, all of the buildings will be where they should be according to OSM data and also satellite imagery. So what that potentially means is you should in theory be able to fly right over your house and it will look as it should do. This is useful for things like VFR flying in things like Cessnas, or when you're flying at a high altitude in say like the 747 on your screen and seeing the world below you in all its glory. It's coming out for PC and also on Xbox, so that you will be able to have it on both platforms. That essentially says to me that they're looking at opening it up to not just the veteran flight simmer, but also looking out at new people wanting to get into it, so you can fly it whether you've got really good experience with the planes or if you have no experience with flying at all on a flight sim. You can just jump straight in, get on a runway where the plane's already rigged to fly and just go out and fly to your heart's content. The game has its standard offline mode, but it will have all of the real world traffic. So let's say you're sitting in Heathrow and there's a plane just coming into land, then what will happen is in the game that plane will also be coming into land in the game as well. And the idea is that it's to try and give it a bit more of a living, breathing environment within the flight sim world. Normally you've had to do that using add-ons and things like that, but in this one it comes as standard. You'll also get full ATC support, and we'll have to wait and see how that looks on launch. And you also have multiplayer, which is a big part of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. So what you're going to be getting is you can do anything like get a few of your mates in and you can all fly side by side. You can do like formation flying or whatnot, and it's all going to be in one instance, which means everybody online will all be in the same instance, as opposed to nowadays you get a lot of times where you can have multiple instances. A prime example is I play Elite Dangerous. Now I can fall into an instance, I can have one of my friends come in and join that same spot in space, but they're in a different instance, so I can't see them and they can't see me, but we're actually side by side according to the coordinates. That won't happen in this game because it's going to be completely all one instance, which means no matter who's in the air, you're going to see them. It'll be interesting to see if there's enough people playing it, how busy they'll make airports and how the ATC is able to manage that. You can see in the background the graphics in its entirety, weather engine, and also the clouds and how the transitioning between them looks. And I'm sure you can agree, if you've been watching any of my X-Plane series, this is a complete level above that, so as it stands. The game itself, the whole weather changes in real time, or you can essentially set it up as you want it to be for that flight. It's got a few shots of the different shadows effects, and when you're looking at the imagery here, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't tell if that's real or not. It is that well detailed. So now let's have a look at Microsoft's launch strategy in regards to the game. It's essentially having three different editions. You've got your standard, your deluxe and your premium edition. Now the standard edition will go for $59.99 or £47.55. The deluxe is going for $89.99 or £71.33. And the premium deluxe is going for $119.99 or £95.10. So they've got the different strategy ranges that they're looking at. The main differences between them that you'll be looking at is the standard comes with just 20 highly detailed planes and 30 handcrafted airports. The deluxe comes with 5 additional planes and 5 additional airports, and then the premium deluxe is 10 additional planes and 10 additional handcrafted airports. What I'm going to do now is pull up a chart with both the airports and the planes so you can see what you get with each edition, and then that way it'll just help you decide which one you'd rather go for depending on the content you're looking at getting on release date. Looking at what it says on the site, now it's not confirmed, but it does look like there is the opportunity to buy certain things as in-game purchases at a later date. So let's say you've got the standard edition, but you want one of the things from the ultimate pack, then you will be able to buy that in a separate transaction, but obviously put it all together, it'll probably work out cheaper in the long run. So it all depends on what you're looking at spending in the first instance. Now, me personally, I'm not a massive fan of this type of model. I think if they've got the content there, that should be on release for everybody. So it should just be one price for the game and you get all the content. Obviously, they're going to be adding things over time, and by all means, yep, have it as DLC or add-ons later on for additional, say, another 10 aircraft and airports, for instance. That being said, the list that you've got in front of you, that isn't going to be the final thing, and that doesn't just mean, say, the airports that are listed there are the only airports you can fly to. Anything that's not there just means the airports won't be handcrafted, so they'll be procedurally generated. Now, over time, you'll start seeing new ones will be released, and then that will be replacing the auto-generated ones, or at least for the big airports. For instance, where I am, it'd be things like Stansted, probably Gatwick, maybe even London, Luton, Manchester, Liverpool, places like that. Whereas the much smaller kind of out the back airports probably won't get the overhaul by hand crafting direct via Microsoft anyway. That might be something that is done through the modding community, say, which is another thing. This game is being shown that there is going to be mods available for it, so even the aircraft that you see there, it's not a mass amount of aircrafts there to begin with at launch, but they are working with third-party developers to create more. So PMDG, is it, from FSX, will be no doubt making a version of their 737 for Flight Simulator 2020. So we will see it being expanded massively over the time as modders and even Microsoft start releasing new content for it. But like I say, anything that's not on that list will still be available airport wise because it will be just procedurally generated, but because it's using real world data, it should not look identical, but it should look pretty close. Now, aircraft wise, that'll be added as they go along, and like I say, there'll be a massive modding community which will be adding things like, for instance, in X-Plane you've got the Zebo, you've got the PMDG in FSX, so no doubt people will start moving some of their stuff across and doing stuff for the Flight Simulator as well. Now on the screen is essentially some of the features and that they're promoting. We've gone through some of these already throughout the video, but as you can see, they've got vivid and detailed landscapes. We're talking over 2 trillion trees. I mean, 2 trillion trees, that's ridiculous. Mountains, roads, rivers and more. And they're having 1.5 billion buildings in there. Now that is an astronomical amount in regards to what you've seen normally. I mean, in a lot of procedurally generated, you normally find 2 in 5 buildings will look the same. So you see massive repeats throughout. Whereas they've got 1.5 billion to choose from. Doesn't mean your house might look exactly like your house would be in real life, but it means there will be something there which is to replicate your house. And from my understanding, they are trying to make it so they're kind of using European buildings in Europe and stuff like that, American style buildings in America. So they're trying to make it so it gets as close and as realistic based on the data via the satellite imagery and the OSM. The next one is a living world. So people have already been reporting that there's been birds that they've seen flying around within the alpha, so it makes me wonder whether bird strikes will be a thing in the final release. But there's animals showing around as well. There's nothing to say anything about people, but I would be surprised if there isn't at least generated traffic on the road networks around. So I'd expect to see that. although I haven't had anything to confirm otherwise. And then we've got live traffic, like I said earlier, which means you'll be able to see any planes that are currently flying in the world will actually be there in the game as well. Coming on to the aircraft, now what we're being told is the aircraft are going to be very highly detailed, which means their serious simmer should have enough detail there for them to whet their appetite in regards to startup procedures, flying, and the actual dynamics of the plane itself. Whether it's study level, that remains to be seen, but regardless, even if it isn't, I'm pretty sure the modding community, like they did with X-Plane and FSX, will create study level aircraft. But it does mean there'll be enough there for them to physically get their head around to begin with. But it doesn't mean that the new simmer or the new person to flight sims is going to be overwhelmed, because you can start the plane, for instance, on the runway completely started already and just go out and fly. What that means is it appeals to the people that are looking for that detail without alienating the people that are new to the flight simming world and maybe don't know how to do the procedures and things like that. They can essentially just start it up and fly and then even learn. Now, I have heard that there might be something along tutorials and stuff like flight training, or at least within the sim itself, which will be quite good for newcomers to the flight sim community. But the other thing is as well, all the instruments, cockpits have been accurately redesigned for the game, and they've actually got flight dynamics all completely rendered for each aircraft separately, so they'll all kind of react as you would expect. Now, whether that will compete with X-Plane, that'll be interesting to see, because X-Plane currently holds the standard for the best flight dynamics, but from the information we're given, this should be holding a bit of competition to that now. It's got a checklist system as well, so whether you're pro or beginner, you can scale your level regardless. And like I've shown you in the video, it's got dynamic weather, which you can choose or have as real world weather, and that means any of the way the weather changes will affect how the aircraft flies. It's got a night and day engine, and in that particular video we watched you could see that, and I think it looked really nice how the lighting effects worked. Apparently the lights will even reflect off the clouds and stuff, so light pollution is a thing in the game as well. So overall the game is looking like it's pretty well detailed, so it'll be interesting to see how it fares up on release and how much it lives up to the hype. But I'm going to tell you this for definite, I'll definitely be getting this game, and I will be putting it as a series on the channel when it comes out. That might end up replacing the X-Plane series for the time being. Whether it will completely replace it remains to be seen, because it depends on whether it lives up to the expectations. But you can look forward to physically seeing it on the channel, and then yeah, we'll see what happens with it moving forwards. I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's a little bit different to what I've done before. If you have, please hit that like button, feel free to subscribe and get the bell on, and I will see you in the skies when it releases.